Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, you know, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio is on the air. Glad to have you here. Our phone line is open at 971-533-7111. And some terrible news to deliver. And that is the death of Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman, age 69, passed away from cancer about 5 weeks before his 70th birthday. And you know how they always say these celebrity death things happen in threes, right? We had Lenny Kilmister from Motorhead, died of cancer 2 days after his 70th birthday. We had David Bowie, died of cancer 2 days after his 69th birthday, aged, and now Alan Rickman, 5 weeks before his 70th birthday, dying of cancer. And we need this cancer thing to be done. This needs to be over. It's just so frustrating to have to keep delivering that kind of news. Anyway, let's get to marijuana, where more terrible news. Have you been following this story out of Flint, Michigan? Michael Moore has been making a petition about this, but basically the short story is the governor of Michigan, to save money, changed Flint, Michigan's water supply from Lake Huron, clean, clear, glacial lake water, to the Flint River, which has like 20 factories on it and has been polluted for decades. And the water's so bad that General Motors won't even wash their auto parts with it because it corrodes their auto parts. That's the water that the governor of Michigan, to save a nickel, or whatever they're saving, inflicted on the kids in Flint. Now, to deal with the fact that the water had been so toxic, they pumped some chemical into it. And that chemical, it turned out to be caustic to the lead that was in the pipes in the city of Flint. So now they've pumped the kids full of lead, and now they're offering all these tests, take your kid in, see if they've got lead exposure. Because once you're exposed to lead, it doesn't go away. It stays in your body. Your body never really gets rid of the lead. So yeah, making the kids drink lead-tainted water. Meanwhile, Michigan's got medical marijuana, and the city of Flint has fought it at every juncture, trying to close down dispensaries, trying to stop safe access to a non-toxic plant. Yes, put lead in the kids' water. No big deal to save a buck, but don't let people have access to a non-toxic healing plant. Just absurd. And now, that story out of Michigan where the prosecutors were colluding with the drug labs, basically getting the drug labs to come back on edibles cases with reports that it was synthetic THC in the edible, not regular THC in the edible, because regular THC is a misdemeanor charge, but synthetic THC is a felony charge, and then it makes it easier to convict people and take their stuff. Why does the government of Michigan hate the people of Michigan so much? Oh my God. Phone lines are open, 971-533-7111. We'll take a quick break to pay some bills, and when we come back, we're going to rant a little bit about that mother-in-law in Kansas who stole a veteran's kids. Now Kansas wants him to give up his medical marijuana to get him back. We'll talk about that when we return.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Marijuana is not addictive, but listening to the Russ Belville Show is.
Cannabis Confidential with Dr. Dina. Candid.
I want to give you the inside story.
Captivating.
I want to introduce you to my kind and amazingly talented friends.
Compelling.
We get to meet some of the most amazing cannabis activists and warriors around.
Listen in as medical marijuana pioneer Dr. Dina shares never-before-heard stories, chats with cannabis insiders and celebrity friends, and provides invaluable perspective and insight into one of the fastest-growing industries in the world.
I want to share with you what was once confidential information. Let's expose the truth, discuss the issues, and learn the facts.
Cannabis Confidential, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Almost 9 after the hour here on CannabisRadio.com. Reminding you, we've got all sorts of great podcasts and shows streaming 24 hours a day on CannabisRadio.com, including Hemp Present with Vivian McPeak, the founder and executive director of the Seattle Hemp Fest. Dr. Mitch Earlywine, host of Burning Issues. You can get a weekly dose of your cannabis science from Dr. Mitch. We've got Dr. Dina, the medical marijuana doctor to the stars. We've got Kyle Cushman with the Grow Show. And coming soon to the network, Tommy Chong's podcast will be joining us. So all sorts of great stuff here on CannabisRadio.com. Today, I'm pretty upset about this story. And I always get upset about these stories that involve Child Protective Services. And it's one of them situations where, there's a lot of situations where kids need to be removed from their parents and Child Protective Services is necessary. So before we get off on this rant, let's make sure everyone understands that disclaimer, right? Like when I get upset about bad cops and the bad justice system, it doesn't mean I don't want no cops and no justice system, okay? So when I get upset at Child Protective Services, it's not to say I don't want Child Protective Services. I just don't want them abusing people. So here's the situation. It's a guy named Raymond Schwab. This is all reported in the Denver Post. A guy named Raymond Schwab was a Gulf War veteran, honorably discharged, who has post-traumatic stress and chronic pain. And he's married, his wife Amelia. They've got 6 kids. 5 of the kids are minors. So here's the situation. He served in the Navy and qualified for 50% disability and lived in Colorado. So he got a medical marijuana card. He'd also tried all the drugs that VA gives him, pain medicines, muscle relaxants, anti-anxiety drugs. And he said they, quote, were making me crazy. They made me worse, end quote. He also developed a heroin addiction, but he says he overcame that with cannabis. So he's living in Colorado. He's using medical marijuana to deal with his PTSD and his chronic pain. Then he gets a job offer in 2013 with the VA. But it's in Topeka, Kansas. So he moves to Topeka, Kansas. The story doesn't mention whether he's still using marijuana while he's in Topeka, Kansas, but he's in Topeka, Kansas. He says, I loved it. I love my job. But 2 years later, he decided to transfer to a VA job in Denver, transfer back to Colorado, and of course, move to Denver where medical cannabis is legal. Here's where the story takes a disturbing turn. They had a family squabble. Raymond and Amelia were packing to leave. They're packing to go to Colorado when Amelia's mother takes 5 of the kids, not the adult one, but the 5 kids aged 5 to 16, took the kids to a police station in another county and reported them abandoned. Now, according to this story, she now regrets having done that. What did you think was going to happen? You're in Kansas. So she reports the kids abandoned. Child Protection Services takes the kids. And now a judge in Kansas is saying that if he wants to get his kids back, he has to have 4 months of drug-free urinalysis tests. He has to give up cannabis. Now, this guy's a regular cannabis smoker, right? So even if he quits cold turkey today, it's going to be a month or 2 before he even sees his first negative test as the metabolites slowly leach out of his system. And to have 4 months consecutive, what I'm saying is going to take longer than 4 months. He's going to have to give it up for 6, 7, 8 months at least to get to that point. He's worried. He says, what if I don't make it through 4 months? Well, it's going to be more than 4 months, Raymond. It's going to be, like I said, 6 to 8. And he fears his condition might worsen without cannabis. Right. PTSD, chronic pain, heroin addiction, all dangers for this man. Now, there was a child abuse investigation that Kansas did, of course, when these kids are reported. And the state investigated allegations that they emotionally abused all 5 kids. 3 months later, those allegations were dismissed as unsubstantiated. So why is the state of Kansas still holding on to these kids? It's just reprehensible. I mean, Raymond says, quote, they're basically using my kids as a pawn to take away freedoms I fought for. It's a horrible position to put me in, end quote. And the wife says, I don't think what we're doing is illegal, immoral, or wrong. So you gotta, it's like, there was no reason to take the kids away in the first place. And I'm understanding that we're talking about 2 different jurisdictions here, Kansas and Colorado. Couldn't be more on opposite sides of the marijuana spectrum. Colorado, perfectly legal. Kansas, illegal as hell. Absolutely understand that. But looking at this from a judicial proceedings point of view, by what measure, by what authority is the court requiring the parents to show that they're drug-free? Okay? The kids weren't taken on an allegation of abuse, and no abuse was shown to have happened. Is this really coming down to the mother-in-law saying that the parents smoke pot with no proof? Now, obviously, they've admitted that they smoke pot. It's known that they smoke pot. But do you get where I'm coming from here? Why does the court feel it needs to stop these people from smoking pot in a state where that's legal? You know, one of the hypocrisy of this is just galling, because you've got the state of Kansas and the state of, I guess Kansas isn't a part of that lawsuit. Oklahoma and Nebraska nearby are part of this lawsuit that says, you know, the Supreme Court ought to intervene because Colorado's pot legality means that we can't enforce our prohibition on this side of the border. You can't make that point and then try to enforce your prohibition on the other side of the border too. And that's essentially what this Kansas judge and Kansas CPS are doing, is trying to enforce prohibition on the other side of the border where marijuana is legal, where it's not child endangerment or child abuse or any sort of bad parenting to be a marijuana consumer. Not that it is in Kansas either. Thinking, of course, of the case of Shona Banda in Garden City, Kansas, where she gets her kid taken away because in a DARE class, the cop says something ignorant about marijuana, and the kid stands up and says, hey, no, that, you know, my mom uses we call it cannabis. It's a medicine. It helps my mom live. And so, of course, they take the kid away, interrogate him without the mom present, and search her place, find her cannabis oil. Now she's facing felony charges. She hasn't seen her kid for a while now. And just this attacking of the children, you know, that's the other stark hypocrisy here, is so much of the drug war, their opposition to marijuana legalization is, what about the children? What about the children? Oh my goodness, won't you think of the children? We are thinking of the children. How about not breaking down the doors and putting their parents in handcuffs? How much does that traumatize the children, as our guest mentioned last hour? How traumatizing is it to the kid to stand up and be brave and tell the truth in class, and your reward for that is to be taken away from your mother? What good is it to these 5 kids? Some little kids we're talking about in this case. What was the age? 5 to 16. What's the effect on that 5-year-old kid to be taken away, to have grandma take you to the cops saying mom and dad are bad for wanting to move to Colorado and use that plant? The harm done to the kids trying to protect them from the marijuana is far worse than any of the harm the marijuana could have conceivably, in the worst case scenario, manifested. And never really does manifest anyway. Marijuana smokers are great parents. And Guy O'Beelam has a great joke. I think marijuana smoking makes me a better parent. I'm up for any animated feature ever. Pixar puts out a movie, man, I'm there. What? The panda knows kung fu? Let's go, kids, get in the car. I think, really, being a parent, if you're not smoking marijuana, you ought to think about it. I think it can make you understand a childlike point of view a little better. I think it can make you a little calmer, a little less, likely to react in anger. It could do wonders for the parents of this country, I believe. But this case, it's in the Denver Post. Raymond Schwab is the man's name. 40 years old, served our country in the Gulf War, disabled veteran, and now we want to keep his kids from him. State of Kansas, man, that's just, what's the matter with Kansas? Thomas Frank had it right. What's the matter with Kansas? So much of this supposedly pro-life, family values people willing to be so vindictive against marijuana consumers. It's not like they're trying to smoke pot in Kansas. They're trying to take their kids and get out of Kansas. You can't, this case makes me so angry. I wish the best for him.
Hey, this is great, man.
Hey, everybody, it's 420. right here in the Pacific time zone. I've got my strong silicone bong, glow in the dark, and I'm smoking the very last crumbs of whatever I think it was cookies and cream that we last bought at our neighborhood pot shop. When we come back, we're going to talk about synthetic pot, the bathtub gin of marijuana prohibition.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping ganjapreneurs grow.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I do not like them, Sam. I do not like green eggs and ham.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
This is Cannabis Facts from Robert Platshorn's TheSilverTour.org, supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. In 1937, the second most prescribed medicine, marijuana, was banned. It wasn't about marijuana. The paper, oil, and chemical industries lobbied to end hemp farming. No longer labor intensive, an acre of hemp produced more quality paper than 4 acres of trees. Plastics and fibers could be produced from a plant. Hemp can even produce 10 times the energy of today's ethanol. As marijuana prohibition ends, many states now allow farmers to again grow hemp. This was Cannabis Facts from TheSilverTour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to process America's hemp crop at hempinc.com.
The Fingerboard Extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The Fingerboard Extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone, and Recording King banjos. The Fingerboard Extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com.
Yarr! Thar be pirates here! Har, 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 har. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 23 after the hour. Phone lines are open here at 971-533-7111. If you got questions, comments, suggestions, or just want to get something off your chest, we're here for you. This is Toker Talk Radio. I'm Radical Russ. You can find me online, Radical Russ everywhere. If it's a social media, if it has an account, I'm Radical Russ on it. So back to the world of football for just a little bit. Too many times I have to report on this. This latest one, New England Patriots defensive end Chandler Jones went to the police department on Sunday morning during the Patriots bye week from the NFL playoffs. Went to a Foxborough police station on Sunday morning. Spoke for about 90 seconds and was acting really strange. Got on his knees, put his hands behind his back, acting very paranoid, just very strange. Ended up having to go to the hospital for it. And this is all about reports that he was using synthetic marijuana. In the police report, they said there was a smell of burnt marijuana in his home. And he went to the police station like 8 in the morning, shirtless, telling police that he'd been told to go to the station for help. Okay, so he spoke to the media finally this afternoon. Didn't get into much detail about the situation here. Basically said he was sorry that he made a really stupid mistake. I quote, "I made a really stupid mistake." And did not mention whether or not he had used synthetic marijuana. This is not the first football player I've reported on with this. Of the big story from the college world was how Robert Kimdichie, defensive lineman for, I think it's LSU, was Ole Miss. I'm sorry, Ole Miss. Robert Kimdichie from Ole Miss had a weird freak out on synthetic weed. Fell out of a hotel window, like second floor, fell on a bush, broke his fall. And that his brother had a problem with synthetic weed as well. Now, there's only one reason any of these guys are using synthetic weed. It's because we're drug testing them for natural weed. They know the synthetic weed doesn't show up on the basic drug tests. They want to get high. And so they're finding a way to do it, a way that is more dangerous. And this is just the natural result. This isn't unexpected. This is not unexpected. Happens around military bases. Lots of sales of spice and K2 around military bases because, of course, people trying to beat drug tests. Around colleges for the same reason. And it's an interesting situation about marijuana compared to all other drugs. In that, marijuana, if you put it on the list with heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, all these other drugs, meth, if you put it on the list with all those other drugs, the marijuana is going to be detected the longest. The one that's the least harmful is the one you can get busted for the most likely. Meth, cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, they're all out of your system, 24 hours, 48 hours at most. The marijuana hangs on. And doesn't that tell you something, that our bodies reject those other chemicals, purge our system of those other chemicals as rapidly as possible, but our bodies hang on to that THC? What does that tell you? It's just so sad that that if you're going to do a drug to alter your mind, the least harmful one is the one that's most likely to get you busted. So it motivates these guys, incentivizes these guys to turn to things like this synthetic stuff, the K2, the spice, that crap that leads to really bad outcomes. These synthetic cannabinoids that they spray on God knows what, they weren't intended for human consumption. They were intended to trip a cannabinoid receptor in a rat's brain at 300 times the normal expected ratios in order to determine a certain scientific effect. These are made for the lab. These are turbocharged, right? I had a guy explain this to me. I met a guy who, he was like a synthetics aficionado. Like, he was into the stuff, right? Like, he's of that mind that, there are no good or bad drugs. It's just, you have to be informed on what you're doing. He's actually into the synthetic cannabinoids. He goes, if you know what you're doing and you're using the right amounts, they can be wonderful. But he explained it to me about how there's this gap, the synaptic gap, he called it, I think. And it was how strongly your receptor is tingled, if you will, or affected, right? And so your anandamide, your natural endocannabinoid that our bodies make, that one's kind of like this little tickle, right? Just kind of, hey there, hey receptor, I'm here, hello, I'm an anandamide, right? Little tiny tickles. Exocannabinoids, what we're getting in plant cannabinoids, right? The THC is kind of like a little tap, right? On that receptor. Not a tickle, a little stronger. Like, hey there, I'm THC. Hi. Hello. Hey, THC here. How you doing there, receptor? Hi there. Hello. Hi. Right? That's why we're not high all the time on anandamide, but when you take THC, it's like, whoa, hey, I'm high, right? And then there's these synthetic cannabinoids. If anandamide's a little tickle to your receptor and THC from a plant is a little tap on the shoulder, these synthetic cannabinoids are the SWAT team breaking down your door with the battering ram. That's the level of interaction they have. Now, doesn't mean it can't be used properly, right? I mean, we have Coors Light, we have Jack Daniels, and we have Everclear. Doesn't mean, Everclear's, 190 proof. It's damn near full alcohol, right? 180 proof, something like that. 90% alcohol. And then you got your Jack Daniels, 80 proof, 40% alcohol. And then you got your Coors Light, which is like having sex in a canoe. It's fucking near water, right? So you got that spectrum of alcohols, but it doesn't mean you can't drink Everclear. It doesn't mean that Everclear couldn't get you a pleasant drunk. It just means you can't chug an Everclear like you'd chug a Coors Light. You can't even take a shot, 2 or 3 shots of Everclear like you'd take of Jack Daniels, right? You gotta know what you're dealing with. Well, the same applies to these cannabinoids, these synthetic cannabinoids even. They may be on the Everclear scale when it comes to cannabinoids. Doesn't mean that they couldn't be useful or they couldn't be used in a pleasant manner. The problem is that's not what you're getting when you're getting the Spice or K2. You're getting this shit haphazardly sprayed on some leafy substance. And then when some state or country changes the law of what molecule is illegal, and they go and they tweak that molecule a little bit, they're not retweaking their recipe. They're just, to switch this little molecule bond and spray it on and let's keep going. Keep the factory running. So even if you've tried the Spice or the K2 once before and you're like, hey, I don't know what everybody's bitching about. It wasn't so bad. Yeah, that batch wasn't. You don't know what you're getting in the next batch. So these pro football players who, let's lay the cards on the table. Not necessarily the guys that are the brightest guys in the world. Now, truth be told, there are a lot of smart guys in the NFL. Okay, there are some. But, let's just say not the most pharmacologically informed people. Get themselves a bag of K2 or Spice and then think they're just smoking reefers, and next thing you know, they're shirtless at 8 in the morning in the Foxborough Police Department. So please, NFL, please, nation, let's stop this ridiculous drug testing. That's one thing, like, it's odd that legalization seems to be politically easier to tackle than drug testing. For me, really, I'm doing legalization to beat drug testing. Drug testing to me is why I'm here. Drug testing cost me my last career. I'm here to end drug testing. And I think legalizing marijuana is what kills drug testing, because without the easy and frequent busts of pot smokers, it's not economical to do drug testing. And that's what will kill drug testing, is when it's no longer economically feasible. But it's weird to me that tackling legalization is easier than tackling drug testing, right? Because like legalization is saying everybody in this state or country, everybody here should tolerate and allow me to smoke pot on my own time, right? That's what legalization is, right? It doesn't go as far as saying there's going to be, pot lounges necessarily, or open air pot smoking necessarily. But in general, it means, hey, I'm an adult. I'm going to put pot in my body, and you ought to leave me alone for that. And we're surprised, 58% of America is on our side with that. 58% agrees. Yeah, go ahead, smoke pot, knock yourself out. And somehow that's easier to fight for than to make the fight to say, why are we drug testing people? Because the drug testing, and because again, of what we know about marijuana smoking, how long it stays in your system, is someone demanding the authority to tell you what you do on your off time. Those two concepts are incompatible, aren't they? How can we have a people that believe, hey, if you want to smoke pot, knock yourself out, but not if you want to have a job? Hey, if you want to smoke pot, knock yourself out, but not if you want to play football. It's like, so no, you don't really support us smoking pot, do you? Like it's a right or it's not. You know, we wouldn't be, hey, gay marriage is legal, great, but we don't hire gay married people. There'd be outcry. There'd be, you know, pitchforks and torches, right? But so far, we haven't yet gotten the American people over to understanding that you can't legalize pot and then openly discriminate against the people who use it. That just puts us in a Jim Crow. That just puts us in a Reconstruction area. That puts us in the era of no Irish need apply and colored water fountain. That's the same treatment. It's legalizing pot and not giving us a place to smoke it. Legalizing pot and being able to fire us for doing so. Legalizing pot and then not allowing us to have housing or taking our kids away or denying us benefits is akin to poll taxes and literacy tests. And no Irish need apply. History always seems to repeat itself. It's just who can we discriminate against and hate and scapegoat, and we'll just change whether it's because of color or what you're smoking or who you like to make love to. We'll get to the phone call right after this break. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I also believe we need a fence. The problem is if El Chapo builds a tunnel under the fence, we have to be able to deal with that too.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
From high atop Mount Soledad in San Diego, California, 100 feet above sea level. Good morning. It's good news with Cannabis Nurse Heather.
This plant is amazing. Positive change is happening. We did it. No matter who you are, you can make a positive impact on the world.
I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
And that quote helped to give you strength.
Nurse Heather is only on CannabisRadio.com.
Good morning, Cannabis Nurse Heather.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabis 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com, with years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
Hello, Mr. Man. Hi. I'm working. I'm sorry. No food till this is done. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 39 after the hour. We got a caller hanging out on line one. Line one, like I have multiple lines. 425 area code. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Russ. Hey, it's Woodman.
Hey, good to hear from you. What's happening?
Hey, I'm calling up regarding a touchy subject, just kind of like you alluded to on the pea collectors.
Yeah.
I have an autoimmune condition I was blessed with, I was born with, and, you know, it's got its episodes, it's got its, chronic pain, and I've chose not to get addicted to painkillers, so it's like there's a reason why I've gravitated to marijuana over the years.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's built-in discrimination in our society. It comes at us from all angles. I've ran into people that, I mean, you can't even be honest with employers or anything, and when you do, they say, well, insurance company, requires it, and even though I agree with it, we couldn't hire you. Or you start taking a look at Partnership for Drug-Free America and all that federal money, and anywhere that they exist, they have those programs and they have their mandates. And I guess I think the insurance industry needs to be flipped on its head with what they're doing, but none of it's based on science. I've took a bong hit at like 8 o'clock at night. I woke up in the morning, went to work, had an employment urine test. I went down there, but I had been on the prescription for Marinol, and I saw the results that came back, and it was over 15 nanograms, but under 45, and I wasn't even high yet. According to state law, that's a DUI. It's like, this is not based on any science. It's institutionalized discrimination, and I think a lot of it's being driven by the insurance and their federal government and the corrupt courts.
Yeah, I think you're right, because, and I'm glad you bring up the insurance point, because of course an insurance company is a company it's dedicated to not paying the insurance benefits, right? If they pay the benefits, why, they lose. It's a big gambling scheme, really. And so they got to do everything they can to not pay out the benefits. And over time, we've eliminated a lot of the reasons they have that they would go to not pay out benefits. But this one remains for them an easy way to not have to pay benefits because of so many people that use marijuana, and they know damn well the science that the people they're catching aren't really impaired, but it doesn't matter because legally they can. And then you get the employer that uses that excuse. Well, gee, I think it's dumb, but the insurance, gosh, Rudy, I've got to pay. Well, look, if the insurance company said, we won't pay out any injuries for gingers, because, gingers have no soul, right? Legally, I think they could, because I think you can legally discriminate against redheads. But would it be right? No. And so you got to ask yourself, okay, company, you're trying to save a buck on your insurance by doing something that's wrong? Well, where's your integrity? Like, you can't do the right thing if it costs you something, if it costs you money. I want to see more companies stand up and say, no, we're not going to marijuana test our employees in these legal marijuana states. And if that costs us more on insurance, well, that's the cost of abiding by the will of the people that it's okay to smoke pot.
Yeah, I mean, is there any cost-benefit analysis? Is there any hard data that out there that explains what these people are really facing in terms of if they do or if they don't, even for THC? Because I'd like to see that.
Well, the first thing is that there's no scientific basis for any of their claims about lack of productivity or more likely to get an accident, any of that. None of that correlates to cannabis use. It does correlate to people having hangovers or having fatigue or using cold medicines, but it doesn't really correlate to cannabis use in any way. And then, is there a study as to what would be the economic impact of us legalizing marijuana and their bottom line for the insurance companies or the drug testers or the rehabs? I haven't seen anything, but I can speculate that it's got to be a big chunk of their operating their plan.
Well, I mean, in terms of like employees, they're forced to give pre-employment, and they can't hire somebody if it's in their system. So what if they did hire somebody? Are the insurance companies going to charge them more for their insurance? I mean, what is that, a 20% upcharge because somebody chooses that choice?
Yeah, I haven't seen any data on that as far as, what those costs would be, how much more it would cost American employers or anything like that. And another thing too is if enough employers rebelled against that, it wouldn't be something they'd write into their insurance plans. It's like, a lot of people don't understand that these insurance companies write these plans. It's like, again, it's like gambling. It's like setting up your own gambling scheme. And so if there's no longer any points to be made by offering a discount for drug testing, that is, if none of the companies took the discount, there'd be no point in putting it in there.
Well, this is an industry that has built-in discrimination, and they do it from, they say it from statistics, but if you take the males that are 16 to 25 years old, they charge them more whether they've had an accident or not. They don't do that with the females. So we live in a society where we say there's no discrimination, and everybody gets behind that one. But when it comes down to it, males 16 to 25 are being discriminated against.
Yeah,
and they shouldn't be able to do that unless they've been in a wreck or can prove that.
That's right.
But to single these people out and discriminate them is wrong as it is to discriminate against people with marijuana in their system for employment reasons or whatever. It's a ripoff. It's an extortion of our society, and it has to end. I just wanted to give you a call and see what you thought.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you calling in on that. It's a great subject. And yeah, the whole thing about actuarial and the statistics behind insurance is fascinating, because it is like what you said. The 16 to 25-year-old males are discriminated against in auto insurance because they'll show you that, statistically speaking, those guys are the ones that lose the bet for us. They're the ones that are the bad bets. So we are able to charge them more. Problem is, that is 16 to 25-year-olds as a set, not any individual 16 to 25-year-old. So why does the individual 16 to 25-year-old male start off with this actuarial handicap? He's basically having to pay for the sins of everyone else his age. And it does seem unfair that, I don't think you could say, well, maybe they do, but there's all sorts of protected classes in this country as far as race, religion, disability is protected. To me, I think there really needs to be a specific right to privacy in our U.S. Constitution. It's an implied right based on the First and the Third and the Fourth and the Fifth and the Sixth and the Eighth and a bunch of other amendments. But there ought to be a specific right that says, my mind, my body is mine, and you can't discriminate against me. And this is something we're not just needing for drug testing, but, oh my God, the genetic testing capabilities that are coming up. Imagine when the insurance companies and the employers can get your DNA, run it through a little computer scanner and go, oh, well, see, yeah, you've got that gene for prostate cancer, and you're like 48. I don't think we're going to hire you because you'd be a big insurance cost to us. Man.
Well, you're right. They shouldn't. That should be a little more inherent in the Bill of Rights. I mean, it is inherent, but it's not explicit to everybody. It doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution, but it's just like 2A, the right shall not be infringed. They need to say the same thing about plant life. Either we scrap the entire Bill of Rights and Constitution, because we have the Bill of Rights, and it's a universal Bill of Rights, and we do away with the laws in the court system, or we write better laws. Unfortunately, it doesn't look real good with the government that we have. Maybe that should be part of the universal Bill of Rights, or else just put it down as important as 2A, because if you take a look around right now, 2A doesn't seem to be too important with this government that we have, and they don't seem to really give a damn about medical patients or legalization or freedom in general. They just talk about it an awful lot. But anyways, that's my 2 cents.
All right, man. Thank you for calling in. Appreciate it so much. And everybody, you're always welcome to call in this 4 o'clock hour, 4 o'clock Pacific. Toker Talk Radio is on every weekday, and the phone line is 971-533-7111. And yeah, there needs to be an explicit right to privacy in the U.S. Constitution. And there are some people out there calling for a constitutional convention. This is perfectly, in our Constitution, it outlines a couple of ways you can get a constitutional amendment. One of them is the way that it's been done so far, which is to run it through the Congress and then have the state legislatures approve it, right? 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the state legislatures, or 2/3 of the states can propose it, and there's a way to do it that way. Or we can call a constitutional convention. That's how our Constitution was originally begun, was a convention of delegates who got drunk as hell. Oh, you should see the bar tabs, folks. Look that up. Constitutional Convention bar tab. It'll rock your world. Got drunk as hell and wrote the Constitution, which does explain a few things. I think we ought to do it again. And I know there's a lot of people that terrifies on usually on my side, on the left. No, we can't have a constitutional convention because what? The rubes and the yahoos will come up with something we don't like. Well, that's the price of democracy sometimes. Sometimes you don't always get what you want. But what fun would that be? Because a constitutional right to privacy expanded. Because really, the founding fathers could not have written a right to privacy in 1789 that would have taken into account DNA testing, electronic eavesdropping, through different mediums of technology that we have today. Digital footprint. Your Facebook profile. Who owns your Facebook profile when you die? That's actually come into courts lately as far as who has the right. Can someone post something? All that kind of stuff. New right to privacy. Expanded to understand modern, urban, high-tech world that says we have the right to our digital footprint, to our mind, to our bodies. That you cannot have anything from any of those things without a warrant. That you cannot discriminate against someone based on the contents of their digital footprint, their mind, or their body. I hear these reports of companies that require their employees to give away their Facebook passwords to the boss so that they can look stuff up. Or require that you friend the boss. Man, it's amazing because I've been out of the day-to-day kind of workplace for almost 10 years now. And some of the stories I hear from millennials talking about, the job searches and what they're having to go through as far as, my boss wanted to have my password for this or that. What? Are you kidding me? So yeah, let's have a constitutional convention. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And for the record, I think the Second Amendment's fine. In fact, of all the amendments out there, I think the Second Amendment's been infringed upon the least. Right? It does kind of crack me up sometimes when I get the Second Amendment people wailing about how terribly they've been infringed upon. Edward Snowden, anybody? All sorts of people have been... Hell, the Rastafarians have a case to make about religious infringement. I mean, a lot of rights have been infringed, not just 2A, folks.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
This is the Russ Belville Show, annoying Kevin Sabet since 2012.
At midnight, July 1st, 2015, adult marijuana prohibition came to an end in Oregon. Immediately, over 400,000 adults who consume cannabis responsibly were no longer criminals. This is what freedom sounds like. Brought to you by Portland Normal. The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Thank you, Dan Michaels. Welcome back. 55 and a half after the hour. Closing up shop here on Toker Talk Radio. Important note from our Central Oregon Legal Counsel. I'm just joking. We're not actually contracted. But Michael Hughes out there in the chat room saying the right to privacy is found within the penumbra of rights under the First Amendment as articulated by Roe v. Wade. Thus, unless Roe v. Wade is overturned, I will steadfastly maintain that such a right to privacy extends to people ingesting plants and other intoxicants. And I completely agree. I've often had the line where I say, my body, my choice, right? That's the feminist line for Roe v. Wade and reproductive rights. My body, my choice. And I completely agree. And if we've got a right that protects a woman's privacy to the extent she can terminate a pregnancy up until a certain point, up until the viability of a fetus, then we certainly have a right to ingest any goddamn thing we want. And it's funny to me, too, because it's not that the government's trying to protect us from ingesting things that are harmful, as that I think it's Echo Movement. If the government cared about your health, cigarettes and liquor would be off the shelf. Yeah, exactly right. But think of all the other harmful poisonous plants that you can grow. You can grow belladonna and nightshade, belladonna, hemlock, whatever. And if you ingest those things, it's poison and it'll kill you. It's not illegal to have those plants. You don't even have to have them in an enclosed, secure, locked place with security cameras around it, like they require for cannabis. You can grow hemlock in your garden. And if somebody sneaks over your garden and it eats hemlock and dies from it, that's their problem. You're not required to keep it all locked up. Hell, I don't know the truth of that. Maybe you would have to put up a sign. Warning, deadly hemlock. You know how people will sue. But I hope you get my drift, right? This has nothing to do with trying to keep us safe or protect us. It has to do with keeping the competition out of the business. And the more you look at this with a grand historical perspective, and this was so beautiful how it was Patricia Smalls discussed this at the International Drug Policy Reform Conference, and discussed how the capitalist economy, the Western capitalist economy that became established from about the 1500s on, from the spice routes, the Silk Road, the trade routes, the Atlantic, the Triangle trade, Africa to the Caribbean to the Americas, all that kind of stuff, has been built on a theme of constant growth that is fueled by addiction for profit. Addiction to sugar, addiction to spice, addiction to tobacco, later on, addiction to alcohol, drugs, now prescription pills. Notice how you've got all these pills now that maintain or treat or manage a condition. Not a whole lot of pills that cure a condition. Not a whole lot of market growth in that. You got to have addicts to grow your market. And so marijuana prohibition is just part of this tangled war between drugs, so that we can't have a natural alternative we can grow ourselves that keeps us off of their addiction profit centers. That's all the time we got. We'll see you tomorrow. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.